If a message is perfect, assume the agent might be captured. In wartime espionage, radios were fast, but they were also a trap. The enemy did not need to crack a code if they could force the operator to send for them. That is where security checks came in. A security check was a prearranged proof that the person sending the message was free to do so. Sometimes it was a tiny, deliberate mistake. Sometimes it was a specific phrase, spacing, or procedural quirk that only the operator and handler knew was required. The point was simple: content can be coerced. The check is harder to fake under pressure, especially when someone is watching the operator's hands. One of the most notorious failures tied to this idea happened in the Netherlands during World War II. German intelligence penetrated parts of the Special Operations Executive networks and used captured radios and operators to feed messages back to London. The tragedy is not just that messages were sent, it is that warning signals were missed. When the required checks are absent, or when a stream of traffic suddenly becomes unusually clean and predictable, that is not reassurance. It can be a sign the sender is no longer in control. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Humans want the story to continue. We want to believe the signal. We want to keep trusting the voice on the other side, because admitting compromise means starting over. It means slowing down. It means telling your team we might be operating on a lie. Spycraft learned early that trust must be engineered, not hoped for. The check is not an insult to the agent. It is a protection for everyone downstream. It is the same reason pilots use checklists and divers use buddy checks. Under stress, the brain narrows. People forget steps, people comply. Also, notice what a check is not. It is not a magic word that guarantees safety. It is a tripwire that forces a decision: proceed, pause, or verify. It is the difference between caution and blind momentum. So the lesson from old radios is not nostalgia. It is a principle. If your system depends on, I think it's them, it is not a system, it is a wish. Now let's translate that wartime lesson into modern life, where the device can be real, the message can be real, and the person behind it can still be under control. Let's bring that wartime principle forward. Today, you rarely deal with Morse keys and suitcase radios, but the problem is the same. You cannot prove identity by reading the message. A kidnapped person can text. A compromised employee can email. A hijacked account can post. Even a legitimate phone in the right hands becomes a weapon. Modern security tries to solve this with layered proof. Strong authentication is one layer. It asks, are you really you? Session monitoring is another layer discussed in modern identity guidance. It asks, are you still you right now in this session? That matters because the moment after login is where coercion and takeover can happen. The login can be valid and the situation can still be hostile. In spycraft language, that is a security check that repeats not once at the start, but throughout the exchange. The goal is not paranoia. The goal is controlled trust. Here is a clean, legal, real-world translation you can use anywhere. If you get an unexpected message that creates urgency, especially one that asks for secrecy or fast action, treat it like a missing security check. Pause. Verify through a second channel that is not linked to the first. If the text says, call me. Verify through an existing number you already have, not the number inside the message. If the email says, reset this, confirm through internal policy, not emotion. If verification fails, do not negotiate with the message thread. Assume compromise. Limit what you share and escalate to whatever your normal safety process is. The earlier you treat it as hostile, the less damage it can do. Organizations formalize this. They use out-of-band verification for high-risk actions. They require more than one approval for transfers or access changes. They log unusual behavior like impossible travel, strange device changes, or sudden requests outside normal patterns, and they treat those signals as tripwires. The hard part? Attackers and coercers exploit decency. They lean on your desire to be helpful, fast, and loyal. Your defense is not cynicism. It is procedure. Procedure is how you stay kind without being gullible. So if you want one phrase to carry, trust is a protocol. The old world used deliberate mistakes to prove freedom. The modern world uses layers, signals, and verification to prove control. Different tools, same fight. Next time you see a message that feels too clean, too urgent, or too convenient, do not argue about it. Run the check, then act. Discover the actual tradecraft behind my thrillers. Download your free declassified dossier at nolanrourke.com or grab the physical copy on Amazon. Join the comms list for a chance at an ARC.